Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guests may not represent those of the host of the station. Folks, I'm so excited, as I always am when I do my show. With me today, I have Edith Lynn Hornik-Beer, that's B-E-E-R, and she is such a treasure and just a wonderful person to talk to and to listen to. She is going to talk about her book. She wrote several books, but she's going to talk about her book. Just got lost in my notes here. Oh, let me start all over again. Edith's work has been published in notable newspapers and magazines. She is an author and a journalist. She was a winner in 2017 for the Nat Kramer Award for Excellence in Journalism. She's the author of 5 books, most recently The Drinking Woman Revisited, and for teenagers living with a parent who abuses alcohol, drugs, both of which have been proved by physicians in the field. Today, Edith will discuss her book, To Invest Successfully, Terms You Need at Your Fingertips. And I just want to encourage everyone, there's so much to tell about Edith Lynn Hornik-Beer. I could be here for an hour. Go on her website, Google her, and go on her website because there's a wealth of information. I want to welcome Edith Lynn Hornik-Beer to Chatting with Betsy. Welcome, Edith.
Well, Betsy, hi. It's so great to be able to talk with you and your audience. And you said you were interested in my book, To Invest Successfully, Terms You Need at Your Fingertips.
Yes, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
tell us about your book.
Now, I'll get right into it. Writers are always inspired to write something, usually quite passionately. Sometimes it happens when they observe something. So I had a very strange experience. I was waiting in my bank to see one of the vice presidents when I overheard a talk between one of the bank employees and a young couple who was thinking about investing. And they were having a very hard time explaining to the bank employee why they wanted to invest, what they wanted to invest. And that made me kind of think, gee, we need a book that lets people look up terms that they need to invest. And that's how this book was born. And of course, it also just awakened a lot of my memories. And
that is, go ahead. That's interesting, Edith, that, you got motivated to write this book by hearing a conversation, because probably most people don't know terms used in investing. I know I don't. I'm not familiar with a lot of terms.
Yeah, and not only that, but you can't always remember all the terms. There's
right.
So many. So I found when I went to a investment dictionary, and the Lord knows there are a lot of them, I would look up my words. Say I was investing in bonds, and I looked up what par means. So the dictionary would tell me what par means, but nothing else. So what my dictionary does, you can go to the index and look up the word par, and then the index will tell you what chapter defines pars? Well, obviously it's going to be in bonds. So, but then when you go to that chapter, it gives you all the other words you need to invest in bonds.
That's very helpful because there's a lot of different types of bonds, aren't there?
Yes, and it's pages long, and you can just skim through it. You don't have to look up everything. But if you are going to invest in bonds, you will at least know what you're getting into.
That's good information. I was wondering, do you have a chapter in there about, like, investing in life insurance by any chance? I don't know why I just thought of that.
Do. Yeah.
Oh, great. Wow.
You just go to index and look up insurance, and then it gives you all types of insurance.
That is really, that's great, because people need to know all the different kinds of life insurance policies.
Well, also now with the tech, we've added a little something to this book. One of it is that you can, if you buy the ebook, there are websites you can click on, and it'll come up and give you more information. Or if the government has a department that handles up, like Social Security, you can click on that website and it'll bring you right to that. That's if you have the ebook.
Okay, and how about your hard or soft copies? Do they have references, resources in the back?
Yes. They'll tell you where you can go, and then that's a very good question, Betsy, and it'll tell you where you can go, and you can open your computer and get it there.
That's important, Edith. Like, that is so valuable. I want the audience to know that. It's important to know before you, I'm going to just say, before I would go to a financial planner or before I would invest, this is a book I would want to have at my fingertips so I could have it, study it before I go, have it with me when I do go to a financial planner or an investor. And if I don't know what a word is, don't understand, there's a book right there to help me.
Yeah, and
yeah.
You know, the first,
excuse me.
The first time I wrote this book was back in the 70s, 80s, early 80s, when there was no tech as we know it today. And at that time, Simon & Schuster published it, and it was quite popular. But then with the tech coming up, I decided it needed to be republished.
Well, that's a great idea, because in the early 80s, you didn't have the tech back then that you do today. I mean, there was no Google, there wasn't computers like there wasn't smartphones. You had to rely on looking things up by yourself, going to a library and looking up this information. So I'm sure your book was extremely helpful in the early 80s.
Yeah. Well, it was. It was extremely popular. It sold immediately. And it actually had a different name. It was called Dictionary of Investment Terms, which didn't really explain how different it was. This book does.
So you changed the name from the original.
Right.
Well, I think
and the audience
this title.
really
Yeah, well, I think this title is more catchy, if you want my opinion, Edith.
Right. Well, also, it kind of, there are actually quite a lot of praise about it, and we actually put that quite a bit in the book. One of the professors of business at Colorado Mountain College says that he liked the concise and convenient style, that I didn't make it overly long, that each word says only the most important thing.
So it's to the point. Your book is powerful, informative, and to the point.
Right. And one.
That's good to know.
Yeah, Rob McKinley, who was used to work. He was a board director at the Global Ad Agency, and he said. It kind of makes me laugh. He said, when I started investing, I didn't know a put from a put. And so he said he kind of finds it interesting, and now he uses the book. And also the CEO of my bank, the Alpine Bank in Colorado, she, the one who heads our one Alpine Bank. There are Alpine banks all over, and this one is in Steamboat Springs. And she said she bought it, and she said she's amazed how much she uses it. So
it sounds like a very important resource book. And Edith, one of the reasons of my show is to provide people with resources to make their life easier. And your book, To Invest Successfully, Terms You Need at Your Fingertips, is definitely a wonderful resource for people to have, because people do invest. And there's so many different terms. There's crypto now, there is Bitcoin, things just keep changing, different kinds of insurances, there's the bull market. These are things that are important to know.
Yeah, but speaking of crypto, I did add a crypto chapter. And I actually put a warning at the beginning of the chapter saying this is a new way of dealing with money and having money, and they should really be careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also mentioned that as I'm writing this chapter, I am sure that new words will come up concerning crypto. But I also have places where they can get more information for the crypto.
Yeah, that's very important. There's a lot of scams going on with that.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. But yeah. I also have, at the end of the book, further reading. And I have books that I suggest for each type of investment. So
okay.
Those books are not vocabulary. They more permit the reader to get in-depth information about each type of investment.
Oh, okay. So your book also less books for people to read for further information.
Yeah, and at the end, of the book, I have further reading and tell them what books to go to. But it started out as a dictionary for each type of investment, but then I decided at the end of the book to also give them further reading if they wanted.
That's very important.
Right.
I also like to talk about women back, I'm going to say, probably since, beginning of time when there were banks. They weren't allowed to take out a loan, right? They didn't. It was hard for a woman to get credit. I'm sure it was very hard for single women. You had to have a husband, I think.
Right.
Or
then she had a brother who took care of her.
Right.
That the father always arranged to take care of her. But the thing is, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I got divorced in the late 70s, and there were still things women couldn't do very easily. Like I wanted to once buy wheat options, and when I called the company, the man who was talking to me said, "Does your husband know you're doing this?" I just hung up on him. and I never bought the option.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was hard. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it was a strange thing. I had read in the newspaper just 3 or 4 lines that the Soviet Union, today Russia, was having a terrible wheat market, that the harvest was not going to be sufficient to feed the country. So I said to myself, well, they're going to have to buy wheat, and wheat is going to go up like crazy. And it did. And I never had the options.
Wow. That's a shame, but that's how it was. I remember when I was single, I think it was like 78, 79, I wanted to apply for a credit card, a MasterCharge. And I filled out the application, never heard a response. And it wasn't until after I got married that I was able to get a credit card, because they based it on my husband's credit. Like I was the co-user, but it took a while for me to earn, I guess what you would call credit or credibility, to show that I pay my credit cards off, for me to establish my own credit. And could you talk about that, Edith, how important it is for women to establish their own credit? Very important.
Absolutely, because if something goes wrong in your life, you have to depend upon yourself. And actually, what happened was that the federal government then passed a law. It's called ECOA, and it obviously stands for a lot of, let me give you the exact name of that law. It's an ancient law now, so I don't have it anymore. But anyhow, they had to pass a law which said that everybody had the right to a credit card if they have the money. And I am just looking up the exact name. We don't need it anymore, but it is the The
I've never heard of that.
Credit Opportunity Act. No wonder I didn't memorize. And that was passed in 1974 because there was such a problem. And it was called the Equal Credit Opportunity Act that makes it unlawful for any creditor to discriminate against any application. And then race, color, religion, national origin, sex, and marital status. In other words, your husband couldn't stop you from doing that.
Wow, that's interesting, the year 1974, because I think back then women were starting to go into the workforce more and more in the early to mid-'70s.
Yes.
And, they wanted credit. Matter of fact, this conversation reminds me of an All in the Family episode, which I used to love to watch All in the Family, when Archie was out of work and Edith wanted a loan, or she wanted to buy a TV. She wanted to buy something. The bank wouldn't give her a loan because she was a woman. And that's what that episode was about. She couldn't get it without Archie being there. I think maybe she wanted to surprise him. Maybe he was at work. I think she wanted to surprise him with the TV set for his birthday or anniversary. Right. And she couldn't get it. And I remember, I brought my first car in 1979. I had to have my father co-sign, even though I was 21. My father had a co-sign. So it was really difficult for women, if you were divorced back then, to go get credit and have credit in your name had to be very difficult. So
I was fortunate. I had a healthy savings account. So that would always back me up. What is, though, I find interesting, and a lot of people are not aware of it, that women started to go to college during the Second World War, because what happened is families usually saved up money for the son to go to college. And if there was enough left, they sent the daughters. But the son always had first dibs on that. So what happened during the Second World War, first of all, the young boys were away, so the daughters were sent to college. And sometimes, unfortunately, they died, they got killed. So that money went to the daughter to go to college. But what was even more helpful to women was that when the GI Bill of Rights came, it liberated that savings account for the daughters to go to college.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that kind of helped them to get jobs because they could study specific work. And that helped to change.
There was, I'm a baby boomer, but the younger generation, they may not realize how difficult it was back then for women. I mean, and my mom, she was born in 1930. She lived at home till she got married. And back then, most women got married pretty much out of high school. My mom was 22 when she got married, and she was considered like a spinster at that time because she wasn't married. I mean, that's young. Today we'd say, oh, yeah, that's young to get married. But she, went to work. But back then it was, you went to high school. Women didn't go to college because they figured, why waste the money? You're going to get married and have a family. And then that education is, not going to be put to use. But I'm sure glad that things have changed since then, Edith.
Yeah. Well, there was another aspect to it, too, though. The wealthy families did send their girls during those years to college, but they went to find an MRS.
Yes.
Mrs.
Yeah. That's true.
So
that is true.
Yeah. So most of them, were sent to find a suitable husband to college.
Yes, and it's. I'll go ahead, Edith.
Now, I would just say it's changing a lot. The dormitories are changing too. They're co-ed. The kids don't always stay in dormitories. They rent an apartment. It's all different today, and
yes.
It's good that it's different.
Yes, it is very much different. When my sister went to college, her dorm was co-ed. It was mixed, and back then, as my mom was growing up, and even when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, it was the mentality that you needed a man to validate your worth.
Right.
That it was not okay to be a single woman. That you needed, a man in your life. That's not so today. We don't need a guy to validate our worth. We know our worth. I hope people,
right.
Young women, know their worth. But I didn't really when I was younger, Edith. I was naive because that's how I was brought up. I also got married at 22. And looking back, that is too young. Now women are getting married in their 30s and even later, or not getting married at all, living together.
What really changed everything, I really feel that medicine does not get enough credit for liberating women, because takes a pill. That changed everything.
Yes.
I mean, when I went to college in Boston, and Boston did not permit contraceptives. You had to go out of the state to get it. And so really, my parents were worried if I might get pregnant and have an unwanted pregnancy. And that all changed with the pill. Of course, now some states, I understand, are protesting the pill.
Wow. Which reminds me of a story. Loretta Lynn, the famous country singer, she had a song called The Pill, which they didn't allow on a lot of country stations back then. Came out probably in the early 70s. And, the song is about she's free now. She's done having babies because she had a lot of kids. She started young, too, having children. And the song was very controversial at that time. But, yes, you're right. The pill liberated women and legalized abortion at that, like in the Roe versus Wade was in the early 70s, 73 maybe, around there.
Yeah, but I want to tell you something? Women always had abortions, even when it was illegal. And there were doctors who did it. You just had to have the right connection.
Yeah, that's true. My grandmother told me the story, Edith. Her sister, she was married, but she had gotten pregnant again. I guess she didn't want the kid. And she had, and you're talking like in the 30s, maybe it was the 40s, she had it, well, it was illegal, and she found a doctor and had an abortion. And that was, way back.
My mother-in-law told me that she had, I know, she had 3 children, and they all were boys. And obviously I married one of them. And she told me that she had 3 more pregnancies. And she said, we couldn't afford 6 children. And she had 3 abortions. Now, I asked her, how did you do it? She said, my doctor did it. He put down that the procedure was something that had to do with my bladder, and he was fixing it.
Wow.
I had another cousin who actually never wanted to have children, and she had a surgery to remove whatever they had to remove so she couldn't get pregnant. And she told me that surgery was called appendicitis. She also had her appendix taken out. But
yes, and there was
they did what she wanted.
Yeah, there was also homemade remedies too. My mom told me about that. I don't know what they were, but
they didn't always work.
Right. Yeah, that's true. When my mom became pregnant with my younger brother, my mom already had the 3 of us in the 50s, and here comes my brother. He was born 63. My mother told me also that she tried to abort the pregnancy. She tried homemade remedies. I didn't ask her what they were, but it didn't work, and my brother was born, and I'm sure she's glad that he was, because he was her favorite. So my brother brought her much joy and 3 granddaughters. So it's just, you're right, medicine, women are more independent now. They're not relying on a man for income. They're not, they're in a relationship. Hopefully they realize that they are being abused to get out. They're not putting up with a lot of stuff that women did, way back when, because you didn't get divorced.
No,
right.
They can support themselves.
Yes.
Which is great. Yeah. But I've heard horror stories. I know I had a friend, and she told me that one of her rich partners was very unhappily married, and her parents did not want her to get divorced. So when they passed away, they left all the money to him, so she couldn't use it.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that's a horrible story.
That is, because women were property, way back when.
Well,
they were considered the property.
They didn't trust her, what it was, and they felt that the husband was doable, but still, it's I understand that that was quite prominent, that it was done.
Wow.
The girl was considered, a bad girl for wanting to get divorced.
Oh, yeah, because that wasn't even heard of, just to tell the younger women who are listening to this that, way back when, women put up with abuse because they didn't have really options. There was no shelters back then. There wasn't any place they could go. Maybe if their family they could go to, but a lot of times not. Their parents might have said, no, you're married now. And they were considered their husband's property. So as the saying goes, we've come a long way, baby.
Right. Well,
and I think it's especially important, Edith, for women to know how to invest so they can have a savings, have their own money, their own income, and if they choose to desire to keep that separate from their husband's income, then that's, their prerogative.
Yeah. Well, I told my husband-to-be that I was going to be a writer, and I would only get married if that was okay with him. And it was. But as I succeeded, he felt very uncomfortable, and if I had given up writing, I think my marriage would have succeeded, but I didn't want to do that. And it's very often an ego thing that men feel inferior if their wives make more money, or if their wives are more successful. But that is changing too, because today there are fathers who stay at home so the wife can work.
Yes, yeah. Everyone has to do what they need to do, for their situation.
Yeah, and actually some men are really quite good at this.
Yes, some better than the women, right?
Right.
There's whatever works for a person's situation. Everyone's situation is different. Someone's husband might have a job where they could work from home, and they could work from home while doing child care, especially, now since COVID.
Have to work. They don't even have to work. I have a friend who has a very successful career with magazines, and she had to travel a lot. So her husband took care of the children, and he didn't work at all. And then when the children were grown and he could work, she had to remind him. She says, you could get a job.
I heard it suggested, you can tell me what your opinion is on this, Edith, that women do keep some money separate if they are married, or maybe they have a joint account with their significant other, that they keep some money separate in case they do have an emergency, in case they do have to leave their partner or husband.
Yeah.
To put some money away. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I have to kind of think through that. I know that,
I never did it.
I know my son and his wife, they keep their money in one pot, but they have a very good marriage. So that works.
Yeah, I never heard of doing that. When I got married 45 years ago, it would have been. So that's something I never thought of. I mean, I didn't hear about that until either my husband was really sick or he might have died, but I never heard of that. That wasn't even thought of back then. I got married in 1980.
But I want to tell you something. I was born in Switzerland, actually, and when I got married, and I didn't get married in Switzerland, I got married in the United States, and I grew up in the United States. But the Swiss are very loyal to anyone who's born in Switzerland. So once a Swiss, always a Swiss. Even if you become another citizen, if you take on another citizenship. But when I got married, there was a Swiss law that unless you had a serious prenuptial agreement, you could not inherit money. Your husband was in charge of your inheritance. So I got married in the United States, so we didn't have to worry about that. But then as my father got older, my mother passed first. As my father got older, he saw that I was not happily married. And he kind of foresaw that I probably would not stay in the marriage. So when he passed away and I went to the various banks where I had inherited money, each banker said to me, your father was here before he passed on, and he made us put in our notes that you are an American citizen and are to be treated as an American citizen. And that is the only way I had an inheritance.
Wow. That is history, Edith.
Yeah.
That, you wouldn't have been able to have inherited your father's money he wanted you to have if he didn't do that. So that was great that your father did that.
Yeah, he did. He did. And but
now, were these American banks or Swiss banks?
Swiss banks.
Oh, okay.
My parents went back to Switzerland. They liked in their old age. And they died in Switzerland and are buried in Switzerland. So obviously he had his money there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he handled it. He wasn't sure how it would happen when he died, so he made sure that they knew that I was an American citizen.
That was very good planning on your father's part, and that shows how much he loved and cared for you, Edith.
Well, yeah, but he also was ahead of his time.
Yes.
There was no question but that I would go to college, and my brother too. There was no question that I could have a career. And the college I went to is interesting. There was a Mr. Simmons who was, men used to have custom-made trousers. And Mr. Simmons had them made that men could buy them in the stores. And trousers used to be round, not a crease on the side. And when they began to make them in quantity, they put a crease in because it was easier on each side. And so Mr. Simmons was known as the man who put a crease in men's trousers. Anyhow, he had a load of money, and he also had a good heart. He saw that women were underpaid, that women really got not good jobs, and he felt that there was a college needed, not like Wellesley or Radcliffe, which is big on liberal arts, but one where you had liberal arts and also a career, studied for a career. And so Simmons University today, is the only university that has a business school only open to women. Now, Simmons was started in MIT, and then it was moved to its own property. But MIT is kind of their brother college.
Oh,
But I love that school because I was able to, I took quite a bit of business because I had not met my husband yet, but I had a gut feeling that someday I might have to support myself. So I did not take writing. I took business, and then I also took liberal arts. So the liberal arts was wonderful, and the business I tolerated. And it really made a difference in my life.
I did not know that about Simmons University.
Yeah. Well, it has evolved. For example, today they have a communication center where you learn everything about writing and how to be a freelance writer, how to write books, and how to use tech in writing, and it just has grown. But how it started, I thought was interesting.
Yes, that is interesting. I didn't know that. That's why.
Yeah.
I feel like you are a history book, Edith, and I so enjoyed talking to you, and the time goes by so fast. Where can people purchase your book to invest successfully? Terms you need at your fingertips.
Well, obviously, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can just go online. I do have a website.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
And it's called Books and Essays for the Curious Mind. And there you can see all my books and where to buy them. And it's called Books and Essays for the Curious Mind. Let me tell you quickly about the essays. I've written essays for the New York Times, the Denver Post, and on. And some of those essays are in that website. But then if you click on books, it shows you all the books you can buy.
Excellent. And I know your work is extensive. I could talk about your work, all that you've done, for probably more than an hour. That's why I like to encourage the audience to go on Google, look you up, go on your website, because there's so much information. Edith Lynn Hornik-Beer is a wonderful resource of information and has done much to contribute to society. And thank you, Edith, for spending time with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for
you're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure. It was an honor and pleasure to have you on Edith, and spending time with me. You are a pleasure to talk to, and I learned information from you, and that's why I have interesting guests on my show, so we can learn. And
I will be listening to your shows too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. All the information about Edith Lynn Hornik-Beer, that's spelled B-E-E-R, will be in the blog that Jeannie White, who's the station manager, she writes and produces the show. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who's CEO of Passion World Talk Radio Network, who makes this all possible. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you for listening, sharing the show. If you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, please do so. It's for free. I'm on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, to name a few. If you have Alexa, you could program Alexa to hear Chatting with Betsy. And share the show, because I want to help as many people as possible. And I have wonderful guests on that are experts in their fields, in their areas, and you don't want to miss my shows. And if you want to follow me, I am on Facebook, Betsy E. Wurzel, W-U-R-Z-E-L. And thank you again for listening. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind, shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever before. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Be safe, everyone. Bye-bye now.